5. Hold that number. 5 supercars. Now, depending on which report you read, you will see 5 or 6 mentioned. But the tribunal order everyone is reacting to centers on this set. 2 Ferraris, 2 Aston Martins, and 1 Rolls Royce. These cars were seized by South Africa's Special Investigating Unit as part of an SIU probe into the alleged siphoning of public money linked to Tembisa Hospital, based on SIU interim findings and government reporting. And now a tribunal has ordered those vehicles temporarily returned to the registered owner, a car dealership, under strict conditions, including providing security, while the case continues. If that sentence doesn't sit right with you, stay right here. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how we got here, what the SIU says is really going on, and why this order might not be the win it looks like. Hit like, subscribe, we are not going to stop digging. Let's go. Now rewind to September 2025. The SIU drops an interim report that shakes the country. One important detail: the SIU's lane is civil recovery and asset preservation. Criminal charges, if any, would be handled by the NPA. According to the SIU's interim report, more than 2 billion rand was allegedly siphoned from Tembisa Hospital through what the SIU describes as fraudulent tenders, fake invoices, and shell companies. 2 billion from a public hospital. The SIU says it identified 3 coordinated syndicates behind the alleged misappropriation. Investigators linked one of the largest syndicates to a businessman named Hangwani Maumela. The SIU reported that his network allegedly handled contracts worth over 816 million rand through 41 linked suppliers. That is not a typo. 41 suppliers, allegedly connected to one man.
You know what? I can't agree with you more. They really are so brazen. Honestly, as we assess over the years, there has been a culture of impunity. You know, these people believed that nothing will happen to them. So as we now strengthened the law enforcement agencies, we are really so determined. And as you know, that we come from the history where some of the agencies were sort of hollowed out. That has changed, right? The leadership has changed in various agencies. There's determination. We want to eradicate that culture of impunity and hold people to account so that we deter even those that were thinking that they could commit this act. So the culture of impunity really it contributed to this brazenness of these people thinking that nothing will happen to them.
Is it a war people like you can win?
We believe we can win. We believe we can win if all of the parts of the value chain really work and work well, right? As you may be aware, that the process that SIU controls end to end is the civil proceedings that leads to the recovery of money and assets, right? When it comes to criminal prosecution, we, by law, hand over that evidence to the NPA. And as I indicated to you, NPA has already started acting. We collaborate with them. Part of what they have done as part of the asset forfeiture unit, they work with us. We expect the wheels to turn and see prosecution. We expect the disciplinary part where the officials have been involved in wrongdoing. The disciplinary action should kick in. They must be taken out of the system. Mm-hmm. Where companies have done wrong, we expect the blacklisting so that they don't do business with the state anymore, and also blacklist the directors.
Now here is where the story takes a dramatic turn. In October 2025, the SIU raids a mansion in Sandhurst, Sandton, linked to Maumela. This is not a small house. According to reports, it is a 3-story compound on one of Johannesburg's most expensive streets. It has a private elevator, a cinema, a fully equipped gym, a barbershop, a car wash, and a basement garage. And inside that garage, 3 identical blue Lamborghinis, a Urus, an Aventador, a Huracan STO, almost brand new. One of them reportedly had fewer than 600 kilometers on the clock. Social media went wild. People were asking the same question over and over. Why does one man need 3 blue Lamborghinis?
This is an SUV by Lamborghini Urus, which is valued at more than 5 million rands. It's one of the vehicles which are being seized by the Special Investigating Unit from the property of Mr. Morgan Hangwani Maumela, who's an alleged kingpin of the looting of the Tembisa Hospital, which affects more than 2 billion rand. So this forms part of an investigation by the Special Investigating Unit, and his assets are being seized. And we see there's 3 large removal trucks which are here to seize some of his assets, including this SUV, which looks brand new. We understand it has less than 500 kilometers on the clock, and another SUV is also going to be seized today by the SIU. And there's a large police contingent outside. There's police from Diepsloot, there's police from Bramley, there's police from Alex. And this is part of an investigation into the alleged looting of the Tembisa Hospital, which led to the killing of whistleblower Babita Deokaran.
But the raid did not stop in Sandton. The SIU also went to a luxury car dealership in Emaleleni, Mpumalanga, Omar's Mobile Den CC, trading as Omar's Motor Den. There, investigators found more vehicles they believed were connected to the case. According to reports, investigators had followed the money trail from hospital contracts straight to purchases at this dealership. According to the SIU, a total of 26 high-value vehicles worth nearly 207 million rand were allegedly bought by members of what investigators describe as the Maumela Syndicate, using proceeds of what the SIU describes as unlawful activities. The unit alleges that the vehicles were registered to proxies or linked parties in order to hide who really owned them. Now let's talk about the numbers. This is the forensic accounting part, and it matters. According to the SIU's interim findings, assets identified and linked to the Maumela Syndicate totaled approximately 520 million rand. That reportedly includes properties in Bantry Bay in Cape Town, bought for 75 million rand, mansions in Sandton worth over 70 million rand each, and a fleet of luxury cars valued at over 223 million rand combined. Meanwhile, Tembisa Hospital receives an annual budget of approximately 1.6 billion rand. According to the SIU, more than 2 billion rand was allegedly misappropriated or siphoned. That means, if the investigators are correct, the syndicates allegedly took more than the hospital's entire yearly budget. Think about that. A hospital that serves some of the poorest communities in Ekurhuleni. According to reports, patients were lying on floors because of overcrowding. There were shortages of food and medication. And at the same time, according to the SIU's investigation, money that was supposed to buy beds, medicine, and equipment was allegedly being used to buy supercars and mansions.
I could just say is wow, and a big wow, advocate. And you'll remember, the wow I also made to you before, last year. The question which I am struggling, maybe somebody within this house will help me. Why Tembisa Hospital? Why Tembisa Hospital? Why was it selected by so many syndicates? What was their purpose and what drove them? I think those questions need to be answered.
Now, this investigation has a shadow hanging over it. Her name was Babita Deokaran. Deokaran was a senior official in the Gauteng Department of Health, the acting chief director of financial accounting. Investigative reporting and the SIU's own findings say that in 2021, she flagged what she believed were major irregularities in Tembisa Hospital procurement, including roughly 850 million rand in suspicious payments. News 24 reported that she warned her boss she feared the people involved would realize she was onto them and that lives could be in danger. That same reporting says her boss claimed the matter had been escalated, and investigators later disputed that. 3 weeks later, on August 23, 2021, after dropping her daughter at school, she was shot in her driveway. Babita Deokaran was killed. 6 individuals were arrested, convicted, and sentenced, with a combined sentence reported at roughly 95 years in a plea agreement with the NPA. To be clear, those convictions were for the hit team and accomplices. Public reporting has not identified, and authorities have not publicly charged anyone as the person who ordered it, and that question still hangs over this case. So now you understand the backdrop: alleged misappropriation, a murder, raids, and supercars. Now we get to the ruling. On January 30th, 2026, the Special Tribunal ordered the SIU to temporarily return 5 seized supercars, 2 Aston Martins, 2 Ferraris, and 1 Rolls Royce. These were taken from Omar's Mobile Den CC Trading as Omar's Motor Den in Mpumalanga. Important detail: the return was to the registered owner, not to Maumela. Court papers say the tribunal found the SIU failed to disclose a key fact when it obtained the preservation order. The cars were registered to the dealership. The tribunal also ordered the SIU to pay costs. The dealership argued it bought the vehicles lawfully, paid for them, and registered them in its own name. The tribunal said that at this stage, there was no evidence of corruption against the dealership itself. But the tribunal also noted a red flag: about 40 million rand in luxury vehicles bought at steep discounts within months. The tribunal said that, for now, it remains an allegation to be tested in the main proceedings. So the cars go back, but with conditions. The dealership must provide security equal to the market value of each vehicle while the forfeiture case continues. The SIU says the preservation framework still protects the state's interest. And here is what the SIU says is really going on. The dealership may have been used as a proxy or intermediary, knowingly or not. The SIU claims money linked to the hospital syndicates flowed into the dealership and was then used to buy these cars. The tribunal says that is an allegation that must be proven. One example reported in the record: an Aston Martin allegedly bought for 2.5 million rand from a company reportedly tied to a relative of Maumela, despite earlier paperwork showing figures above 5 million linked to a Maumela trust. Another, a Ferrari reportedly bought for 3.7 million rand, while the SIU claims it was originally purchased for over 6.4 million. That pattern, investigators say, can resemble asset laundering: buy high with allegedly illicit money, sell low through an intermediary, and the vehicle can look clean on paper. The tribunal says the evidence will be tested in the main case. Now the DA has been vocal. They launched a petition called Collect the Billions and want seized assets sold and the money returned to the Gauteng Department of Health. Reports say one billboard read, "Tembisa Hospital victims died for Lamborghinis."
Before I go to Dumisani quickly, Jack, what instruments do you have at your disposal, especially as opposition parties that ought to be holding the executive to account? And not just as opposition parties, but just doing your parliamentary work as well, because I would assume you South Africans before you are EFF and DA members. Speak to us about what do you have, what sort of, so to speak, I don't want to say weapons, but instruments that you can use to truly get to the bottom of it. Because South Africans, and I'm asking this not facetiously, because South Africans are genuinely thinking this will be just one of those stories. We'll forget about it. No one is going to be held in account, and we'll move on. And we are speaking for the purposes of filling up some airtime on radio, and that's where it will end. What do you have at your disposal that you can truly push and make sure that there's a positive outcome for South Africa herein?
Well, official questions for reply are very powerful because they're obliged to answer. And that's actually how the Life of Sedimeni disaster was uncovered, because I asked a question for oral reply to the then MEC for Health, Hangwani Maumela. I said, have there been any deaths? And she was forced to disclose at that stage that there were 36 deaths. So it's the one place that they can't avoid questions. You know, the press can ask questions and they can defer it, but they are legally and constitutionally obliged to reply to questions of the legislature. And I've asked questions about the Tembisa Hospital, about whether these companies had got business from other hospitals, and they have. They have got business from other hospitals, so the tentacles are all over the place. So questions are very powerful, but also oversight visits. And here I have to say I'm very disappointed because, you know, we've tried to do oversight at Tembisa Hospital and other hospitals, and then we get turned away. And this is just completely unconstitutional. I had to sneak into Mzansi Breakdown Hospital just to check up on whether they have enough linen, and they don't have enough linen. But in fact, I think that the present MEC for Health has been blocking oversight visits, and it's a frustration amongst all opposition parties. What have they got to hide? So, look, we do our best. We are a constitutional democracy. There's a health oversight committee where we can also call the department to account. The Auditor General reports, which have always been scathing, and the department has done nothing about it. So, you know, we raise this in the legislature. Information is important, you know, and when we expose the scandals, they're obliged to do something about it. But they just talk the talk. They don't walk the walk, unfortunately.
Dumisani, very concerning. What is to be said about the solidarity of political parties beyond the boundaries of their ideological outlook in working together, in making sure that we are pressing and perhaps in caucus work to make sure that whilst the DA asks this, our follow-up is going to be different so that we don't become an echo necessarily. And I'm not necessarily meaning the EFF is that. Please don't misconstrue that. I'm just making an example with the EFF because you're here. We've just lost Dumisani in a short while. But maybe, Jack, you want to answer that and the solidarity that we don't see as people on the outside because we're thinking you're always at each other's necks and throats. But it's something to be said about solidarity to make sure that something is done, proper follow-ups, putting political pressure where it matters most.
Yes, I think we all have a shared interest in oversight visits, unrestricted oversight visits without notice, you know, because if we tell them we're coming, then they quickly fix things up and they're prepared. I mean, it's very powerful to visit a hospital, as I did at Hangwani Maumela Hospital. As I said, I actually had to sneak in, whereas I should have been constitutionally, able to enter as an elected member of the Gauteng legislature.
And why is that, Jack? Why do you have to sneak in? Were you blocked by the MEC, anyone else, the authorities, CEO of the hospital?
One more layer, because it fueled the noise. A video circulated showing the president outside Maumela's house. The presidency said the footage was being misrepresented, denied any personal relationship or involvement, and said it was recorded during a routine walk in September 2023, even though it resurfaced in October 2025. Either way, it doesn't change what the tribunal actually did with those cars. Now bring it together. The SIU says its investigation won't be fully complete until November 2027. Reports say criminal charges have not yet been laid against the alleged syndicate leaders. Babita Deokaran's family is still waiting for answers, and public reporting has not identified or seen charges against anyone as the person who ordered her murder. And while that case continues, supercars worth millions are being temporarily returned to a dealership under conditions. The SIU calls this a procedural ruling. The preservation fight continues. The main forfeiture case is where the real test happens. But for people in Tembisa, for patients who waited on hospital floors while billions were allegedly siphoned away, it feels like a step backward. So here are the questions that matter. 1. If around 40 million rand in supercars were bought at steep discounts in a short time, and the money trail, according to the SIU, allegedly leads back to hospital contracts, how did nobody raise the alarm? The tribunal says that remains an allegation to be tested. 2. Who ordered Babita Deokaran's murder? 6 people were convicted for the hit, but public reporting has not identified or seen charges against anyone for ordering it. 3. If the SIU is correct that SAPRA confirmed none of the service providers under investigation were licensed during the period under review, and every procurement bundle reviewed so far was irregular, who inside the hospital made it possible? Who opened the door? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should those cars have been returned, even with conditions? Do you think we'll see arrests of the alleged syndicate leaders? Like, share, and subscribe, because this investigation isn't over. And neither are we. This is Mzansi Breakdown. We keep digging.